everybody, welcome to Chef's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to make some bread. I'm going to do 2 small loaves, and this is going to be using some Italian herbs and some powdered or granulated garlic. If you don't have an Italian herb mix, that's fine. You can use whatever herbs you want, like oregano, thyme, rosemary, anything you like basically. Just chop it up. If you've got fresh, if you've got dried, that's fine. That will work better, potentially. And if you don't have powdered or granulated garlic, you can sort of mince some garlic and mix it in with some of the liquid I'm going to talk about, and then that will spread through the dough quite nicely. So this recipe is actually for 1 large loaf, but I'm doing 2 small ones simply because that's better in these current circumstances. Me making 1 large loaf for myself would simply mean that it would go stale before I can actually enjoy it. So I can sort of freeze a small one and eat the other small one. So this recipe actually comes from my sister in Canada. She has a book with bread machine recipes in, and she took one of those bread machine recipes and converted it to do it manually with a stand mixer or by hand, and then she decided to add some herbs and some garlic in. So that's what I'm going to do. She said it was wonderful, and I know it is because I made it yesterday just as a trial, and now I'm doing it again today. Hopefully slightly better than yesterday's one. Yesterday's turned out very well indeed, but the dough was a bit too wet, so I've adjusted it slightly. So for the ingredients, I have 500 grams, which is 4 cups of bread flour. You could use all-purpose or plain flour if you don't have bread flour. And for a cup of flour, I'm saying 125 grams. It depends on how you scoop the flour basically, but that's 4 cups, 500 grams. Then I have 300 millilitres of water, and I've got 1 cup, 240 millilitres in this jug, and I have a quarter of a cup, which is 60 millilitres, separately, so that I don't add all the liquid at the same time in case I don't need all of it. And now I have this lukewarm, which for me means that it's between 41 and 43 Celsius, 105 and 110 Fahrenheit. That's so that we don't kill the yeast when we activate it. I have 2 tablespoons of Italian herbs, mixed herbs here, dried, and I have 2 teaspoons of powdered garlic. I have 1 tablespoon, 12.5 grams of caster sugar or any sugar. I have 1.5 teaspoons of salt, 1 tablespoon, 15 millilitres of olive oil, and I have 8 grams, which is 1 packet of active dry yeast. So what I'm going to do first of all is to activate the yeast, and to do that I put the sugar into my single cup of lukewarm water, and then I'm going to sprinkle the yeast in as well, and I'm going to give that a stir around. And then I have to wait for that to activate. The yeast will start to go frothy, and that's going to take 5 or 10 minutes. So I'll be back with you in about 10 minutes when that has activated. So as you can see, the yeast is frothing nicely, and it's been about 9 minutes, so that's ready to use. And what I thought I would do just before I go on to that is tell you what's in my Italian seasoning mix. And in here it has oregano, some people call that oregano, basil, thyme, rosemary, black pepper, and some garlic granules as well. So that's the mix that I'm using, and it does give a very, very nice bread. So the next thing to do, and I should stress you can do this all by hand, but it's easier if you have a stand mixer, is to put the flour and the salt and the herbs and the garlic powder or granules into the bowl of your stand mixer if you have one, and just give that a good mix around to get those mixed in a little bit. And then what we're going to do is to add this yeast mixture and the olive oil, and I'm going to put the olive oil into the yeast mixture so it goes in at the same time. And with my dough hook attached, I'm going to mix this on slow speed until it starts to come together. Now, once it's come together, we're going to increase the speed of the mixer, and we're going to knead it for 8 to 10 minutes until the dough has all come together and it's elastic and it's not sticky to the touch. Now, the reason I have some of the water separate is that I may not need all of the water, and I also have here some more flour if I need some more flour. So because flour absorbs liquid differently depending on which flour you've got and the humidity in the house and such like, I may need a little bit more flour and I may not need all of the water. So I'll try to show you that as we go through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the mixer, and I'm going to add the liquid that I've got with my yeast. And I need to dip all of that froth in because that's the yeast. And what I will actually do is take a little bit of my extra water into the jug and rinse that around just to get that extra bit of yeast out. So we'll mix this on a low speed until it starts to come together quite nicely. Now, as you can see, that's beginning to clump quite nicely. I'm just going to add a little drop more water, maybe a tablespoon at first. Now, as you can see, that looks as though it's clumping quite well, but I'm actually going to put about another tablespoon of water in. And then I'm not going to add any more water unless I really think I need it. So at this stage I'll increase the speed to a medium high, and I'll knead it for 10 minutes. Now I think from seeing that I need at least another tablespoon of water, just so that it clumps together or it all sticks together. So I have now kneaded that for 9 minutes, and if I feel it, it's very slightly tacky, but it's worked and kneaded quite nicely. So I actually used about 290 millilitres of my water, and what I'm going to do is very lightly flour the work surface, And I'm going to take the dough and put it onto the surface. And with the dough on the surface, I'm just going to put some flour on my hand just so that I can work with it. I'm going to turn it over into itself, and I'll use my scraper as needed, just like that. And this is still slightly tacky, but I think it's certainly kneaded enough, and it's doesn't have too much moisture. I'm just kneading that a little bit. And then I'm going to form it into a ball, and place it into a greased bowl, which I will cover with plastic wrap. So that it can prove. So I'll put it in top side down, spin it around, and then turn it over so that the surface is covered with the oil so that it doesn't form a skin as it proves. Then I'll cover that with my plastic wrap. And I'm going to put that into a warm place and allow it to prove for an hour or until it's doubled in size. And then when it's doubled in size, I'll come back and we'll go on to the next step. It's been 50 minutes and I can see that my dough has more than doubled in size. So we'll go on now and we will divide the dough in two and shape it, and then we'll prove it again. So this is what mine looks like. And I'm actually going to take a little bit of flour again onto my work surface. Oops. And I'm going to pull the dough out. I'm going to knock it down just to get the air out of it. And then I'm going to pull it into a sort of ball, and then I'm going to divide it into two. And you don't have to be precise. As I say, you could just make one loaf, but I'm doing two. And you can do whatever shape you want. So I have a couple of baking trays here which I've put some parchment paper on, and all I'm going to do with this piece of dough is to form it into a ball, and I'm turning and putting some pressure on the base because I want to try to get the top of it to be a little bit taut, get some tension into the dough. And then I'm going to put that onto my baking tray and leave that. I'll cover it. It will spread a little bit as it rises, I'm sure, but that would be fine. So for the other one, I think what I'll do is just knock it out like that and then I'll fold the top down twice, and then I'll fold the bottom up twice, and then pinch the seam together, and then I'm going to turn it over and push it together. I don't want it to be too long particularly, and again I'm going to try to create some tension by just working the underneath like that. And then I'm going to put that onto another baking tray. Like that. And I'm going to cover those with a clean but damp towel, and I'm going to leave them to rise again for about another hour. And then I will come back, we will score them, brush them with some oil, and then at that time I will have my oven preheating at 190 Celsius, that's 170 Celsius with a fan, 375 Fahrenheit, and they'll be ready to bake. So I'll be back in about an hour when we can start to bake them. Well, I've let the shaped dough prove again for an hour, and so now it's time to bake it. The oven is preheated to 190 Celsius, 170 Celsius with a fan, 375 Fahrenheit. And I'm going to take a sharp knife and I'm going to slash the dough just like that. And in the round one I'm going to actually do a cross. Like that. And then I'm going to take some oil. I've got about a tablespoon of oil here, and I'm just going to brush some oil onto the top. And this will give me a nice chewy but sort of a soft type of crust. I don't want a crusty loaf for this one. That's good like that. And then I'm going to put that into the oven, or those should I say, into the oven, and I'm going to bake them for 25 minutes. And if I turn them over then and tap them, the bottom should sound hollow, and that will indicate that they're done. Or you can test with an internal thermometer if you want to see that they're done. So at that stage I'll take them out, put them on a wire rack to cool down, and then I'll come back and show you the result. Well, I baked the Italian herbs and garlic bread for 25 minutes. Then I tapped the bottom and it sounded hollow, so I took it out of the oven, and I've allowed both loaves to cool down. I've sliced one, and this is what it looks like. and you can probably see it has a nice texture, and I can see, or I can see, I hope you can, the flecks of the dried herbs inside. So usually I would put butter on this, but I'll have a taste just as it is. It has that lovely herby flavour. That combination of herbs is very good. And I can taste a hint of garlic as well. The crust is nice and chewy. It's not a hard crust. It's hard when it comes out of the oven, but it very quickly becomes just a nice chewy crust. This is perfect bread, as far as I'm concerned, to have with dinner, with soup and such like, and sort of with butter spread on it. So I hope you've enjoyed this recipe, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well. And I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future, so until then, happy baking.